Hello friends, and welcome back to week 2 of Building Bridges, our course in radically ordinary evangelism for everyone. Last week we talked about where we are as a culture and our motivation for social, personal, relational evangelism. We started to set out a 5-part structure, a framework for our personal relational evangelism, which was B.L.E.S.S. 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 Do you remember what the letters were? It was B, begin with prayer. L is listen to people. E is eat with people. S is serve people. And the final S is share your story. And we're going to start to unpack those letters of B.L.E.S.S. This week. And the first one is this: B, begin with prayer. Let me tell you this: you aren't going to save anyone. You also aren't going to make opportunities for gospel conversations. You aren't, but God can. It doesn't matter how good you are with people, how well you can explain the gospel and communicate it. Saving people is God's work and God's alone. Now we get to be part of it. He can use us, but only as tools in the hands of a master craftsman. So we need to pray. We need to pray for people and for opportunities. Picture this. Not doing this would be a bit like this. It would be a bit like Lewis Hamilton turning up to Silverstone for the F1 Grand Prix, and Lewis Hamilton getting on the track, getting on the starting grid for the race about to begin, and he's in his pole position for the start of the race. And as the race is about to begin, the lights go down and the flags wave, and he realises he's forgotten his car. He's forgotten his car. Now, as skillful and as brilliant as Lewis Hamilton is, without his powerful car, he's going nowhere fast. Friends, when we don't begin with prayer, it's like Lewis Hamilton turning up to the F1 without his car. The Bible describes prayer as a powerful weapon. And it would be like turning up to battle without your sword. If you've ever done an exam, perhaps you're a student watching this now, if you've ever done an exam, you'll know this phrase well. By failing to prepare, you're preparing to fail. I wonder if we need to tweak that a little bit for our purposes and say, if you fail to pre-prayer, you're preparing to fail. If you fail to pre-prayer, you're preparing to fail. Now, prayer isn't a slot machine. Prayer doesn't guarantee evangelistic success, but not praying does guarantee a stripping of the power of God. A friend of mine wrote in his book, he said, of course, even with faithful prayer and a spirit-empowered gospel message, people are still able to choose to reject the gospel. But we can trust God to be at work through our prayers. Even when we don't always immediately see the outcome we might be hoping for. In fact, adopting an ongoing posture of prayer helps to remind us that evangelism is rarely, if ever, an event, but a journey in which we let God himself take the lead. So, we need to pray for people. Prayer places those people into God's hands, not ours. So let's pause straight away and let's pray for people specifically, and let's pray for opportunity. Let's pause and pray. So we begin with prayer. We go on to L. L is listen to them. The other day, my wife came home and she said, "Have you been outside?" And I got all defensive and said, "Well, no, not yet. I haven't done the bins. I'm sorry that the bins haven't been taken out. And yeah, I guess there's muddy footprints on the floor, but that's not because I've been outside and brought them in." And I got a bit defensive and got into my explanation of these different things. And she stopped me and said, "No, you're not listening. I'm asking, have you been outside? Because I know that when you go for a run, you feel a lot better." I heard what she was saying, but I wasn't listening well. We assume that in evangelism, our mouths are the most important thing in sharing the gospel, but our ears are important too. Listening well is really important. Remember last week we said everyone has a spiritual worldview. A lot of people at least have an opinion about faith and Christianity. Everyone definitely has their own story to tell. So how do you find that out? Well, you ask questions and you listen to answers. What is their story? What concerns and challenges are they facing at the moment? What do they love most in life? You see, if we wade in too early with our defensive presentations of Christianity, people will just glaze over because we've basically paid no interest in them and their story. People feel like we don't actually care about them as people. We actually risk completely misunderstanding where they're at and possibly miss the opportunity to understand how the gospel may uniquely relate to their circumstances. Your job in relational evangelism is not to preach at people. Your job is to build bridges. And listening is key to that. Listening to their story means that you buy the rights, if you like, to tell your story later on. Listening well means that you engage with their questions rather than forcing them to ask ours. Listening means that you get to understand the personal experiences behind a tough question. When someone asks a tough question about suffering, it's probably and often because they have their own personal dramas going on. Listening means that you get to understand your friends' attitudes and priorities and strengths and joys and hurts and fears. Listening means that you find out about their needs and their problems, which you can serve later on. B.L.E.S.S, serve. We'll get onto that later on. And listening means people feel like they can talk to you. Listening makes you a friend. And as we said last week in the first session, friendships are where evangelism happens the best. We need to know when to speak, when to listen, when to answer, when to ask. Jesus was a complete master at this. You can look it up in the Bible. But let's pause again there. Let's pause and perhaps brainstorm what are good questions to ask as we listen well to people. So B, begin with prayer. L, listen to people. E is eat with people. This is my personal favourite in these 5 steps for obvious reasons. But remember Emperor Julian, who we talked about before. Emperor Julian, the 4th century Roman governor, who was writing to his subjects saying, we've got to do something about these Christians because people all around are turning to Jesus, becoming Christians themselves, because Christians are doing ordinary hospitality in their homes. They're getting people into their homes around the table, they're eating together, and there's something about that which is transforming lives and communities. Emperor Julian, in this letter, described them as feasts of hospitality and tables of service, and it was having a major impact. Standard practice for early Christians to gather over food, and we have stories of Jesus eating with all sorts of different people and having all sorts of conversations. When we eat together, we share stories. When we eat together, we share hopes and fears and disappointments. When we eat together, people open up to each other. And we ourselves can open up to share the same things, including our faith in Jesus. Some of the most exciting potential for evangelism happens around kitchen tables, happens around food, happens around social evangelism. And so let me set a big challenge for us as Grace Community Church as we think about being socially strategic. It's something I touched on last week, and I want to set a challenge for Grace Community Church. It's called the 1 in 8 challenge. The 1 in 8 challenge. What is the 1 in 8 challenge? Well, my friends, you and I have, on average, 8 Friday and Saturday nights per month. Friday, Saturday, that's twice in a week. Average of 4 weeks in a month. That's about 8 Friday and Saturday nights a month. Can you use, here's the challenge, can you use 1 in 8, 1 Friday or Saturday night per month to be socially strategic? That means, can you invite a non-Christian friend over and a Christian friend over? Someone from work and someone from church. Someone from your street and someone from your home group. So that now you are not the only Christian that your friend knows. Now, this is all about making connections and having conversations. There are really good things about this 1 in 8 challenge. First of all, it's doable. I don't think you're adding something into your life. You already presumably eat or drink something on a Friday and Saturday evening. You're just using 1 in 8 of those to be socially strategic. It's quite fun. This is not about hosting big elaborate parties. If you're an introvert, I hear you. All your introverts saying no. But this isn't about entertainment. This is about even 1-to-1 or 1-to-2 hospitality. It doesn't have to be expensive. It could just be simply invite someone over for coffee or a pudding night or a trip to the pub. Look, I will personally pay if you would like to take me to the pub with someone who you know. It doesn't have to be expensive. It doesn't have to be crazy and elaborate. It could just be a pub. It could be a coffee shop. It could be a birthday party in the garden. Whatever it is that just gets people around the table and talking. And as you talk, one of the most natural and obvious questions that comes up is, well, how do you two know each other? And for you to be able to say, well, actually, we go to the same church. Suddenly, now you're not the only Christian that your friend knows. Suddenly, even that first hurdle has been overcome. It's just about building those bridges, asking questions conversationally, listening to answers, looking for ways in which you can bring your story, your faith, your church stuff in. There's something that happens when we gather over food. Can you do that 1 in 8 challenge? Let's pause the video again here for a little bit of time to think about how that 1 in 8 challenge may look for each of us. Begin with prayer, listen to people, eat with people. The first S is to serve people. Elvis sang, a little less conversation, a little more action. And as Christians, we're called to be people who put others above ourselves, to have a little less conversation, a little more action at times. We're called to be others orientated rather than self orientated, to serve the needs of other people before serving our own, to model ourselves on Jesus Christ, the servant king who was happy to wash feet. We're called to be a people of blessing. People of blessing. What do we mean when we call ourselves people of blessing? I found this neat quote which said, blessing means anything that relieves someone else's burden in life. Blessing is anything that relieves someone's burden in life. Anything that helps them breathe more easily. Anything that lifts their spirit or alleviates their distress. People of blessing build others up with their words and actions, whether small or large. You may have come across the book or the concept of the 5 love languages. 3 of them include affirmation, words of affirmation, gifts, and acts of service. I think they work in this kind of serve them structure, don't they? Blessing people with affirmation, gifts, acts of service. Some things that you might want to think about are words of encouragement, an affirmation, a nice text or an email which blesses someone. Thoughtful gifts at random sometimes to people that you know. A card or a note to give some appreciation. A favour or a personal errand, helping out with some DIY. Offering to babysit, doing a school run, taking someone's car to the garage, helping someone move furniture or move house. I know of one person who baked a whole batch of hot cross buns and just delivered them to all the neighbours on the street one Easter with a short Easter card and an invite to an Easter service in there. And maybe you could do the same with a whole lot of mince pies as we come towards Christmas this year. Perhaps it's dropping over a meal. Perhaps it's dropping off a food hamper. I know of another person who joined a local area community Facebook group simply so that they could be up to date with various needs. When a baby was born or when a dog went missing, so that they could help to serve those people. Anything that relieves people's burdens in life and deepens your bonds with people. Now, it's important to say that this is all out of a genuine care for people. With all of this, we're trying to communicate a genuine Christ-like care. It's not all solely for the aim of evangelism and conversion, although that's obviously good. But this is genuine care and serving people as an end in itself. We're not being generous friends merely to convert people. We are blessing and serving simply to bless and to serve. As Christians, we want to say we care for you, we're with you, we want to help. We care because we care because we care. Full stop. We want to be people of blessing and deepen those bonds to build those bridges. Let's stop there for now. There's a few more discussion questions as we turn to our home groups. And again, let me set you this homework, this task for next week. Maybe you've already started to think about this. Can you finish the sentence? Having Jesus in my life makes a difference because. Having Jesus in my life makes a difference because. And next week, we'll be sharing some of those stories.